Prologue. Real world. The argument was still echoing in Elias Ward's head long after he slammed the front door behind him. Cold December air slapped his face as he stepped onto the porch, but it didn't cool the heat in his chest. The Christmas lights he'd hung 2 weeks earlier flickered softly, casting red and green reflections across the snow. They looked cheerful, mockingly cheerful. Inside the house, he could still hear Mara's muffled voice, not the words, just the tone. Hurt, exhausted, the same tone she'd used too many times lately. Money, bills, missed hours at work, promises he hadn't kept. It all piled up until it finally cracked something between them. He hated that their 4-year-old son, Oliver, had heard any of it. Elias rubbed his hands together, breath fogging in the air. He wasn't a bad man. He wasn't trying to be. But somewhere along the way, life had gotten heavier than he could carry, and every time he tried to lift it, something else slipped. He walked toward his car, boots crunching through the snow. The neighborhood was quiet, the kind of quiet that made every thought louder. He shouldn't be driving, he knew that. But he needed space, just a few minutes to clear his head. He opened the car door and sat down, gripping the steering wheel. His knuckles were white, his heartbeat thudded in his ears. He could still see Mara's face in his mind, the way her eyes glistened, not with anger, but with fear. Fear of losing him. Fear of losing the life they'd built. Fear of what they were becoming. He whispered into the empty car, "I'll fix this. I swear, I'll fix this." The engine rumbled to life. Snowflakes drifted across the windshield like tiny ghosts. The road ahead was dark, lined with bare trees that reached toward the sky like skeletal hands. He drove slowly at first, replaying the argument in his mind. Her voice. His voice. Oliver crying in the hallway. He should turn back. He should apologize. He should. A flash of headlights. A patch of black ice. A sudden skid. The world spun. The last thing Elias saw was a massive oak tree looming in the headlights. The one at the bend in the road. The one he'd passed 1,000 times without noticing. Tonight, it looked alive. Its branches stretched like arms. Its trunk twisted like a face screaming at him. Its shadow swallowed the car whole. Then everything went silent. And Elias Ward's world went dark. Chapter 1. Eldros. Darkness. Silence. Then, breaking, shattering, like the tail end of a nightmare he couldn't escape. The screaming of his wife, the crying of his son, the crunch of metal. The world collapsing around him. All of it faded, slipping away like water through his fingers. In its place came a new sound, soft, steady, close. "Sir, Kyle." Elias, no, Kyle, opened his eyes. A woman stood over him, auburn hair tied back in a neat braid, a bow slung across her shoulder. Her eyes were warm, ocean blue, and strangely familiar in a way he couldn't explain. He blinked at her, confused. Who are you?" She let out a small laugh, though worry lingered behind it. "Don't be silly. It's me, Lyria Dawnfell. That last battle must have done more damage than we thought. You were knocked out cold after that blow to the head." Kyle pushed himself upright, his armor clinking. Armor! He stared down at the polished steel plate strapped to his body, the crest of a wolf wrapped in vines etched across his chest. What the hell? He looked around wildly. No pavement, no headlights, no buildings. Just endless silver grass swaying under a violet sky. Where am I? Where are the cars? The buildings? And what am I wearing? Lyria's expression softened into concern. Cars. Buildings. Kyle, what are you talking about? We have castles, not whatever those words are. She knelt beside him, brushing dirt from his shoulder. Whatever you heard must have been part of your dream. Dreams or not, Kyle muttered, rubbing his temples. Something isn't right. I heard voices, a woman screaming, a little boy crying. They felt familiar, but I can't remember how. Lyria placed a steadying hand on his arm. You've been through a lot. Memories get tangled after a battle. Give it time. But Kyle wasn't convinced. The voices hadn't felt like a dream. They felt like a life he'd lived. A life slipping further away with every breath he took in this strange, beautiful world. And as the wind whispered through the silver grass, carrying scents he didn't recognize, Kyle realized something unsettling. He didn't know which world was real anymore. The tent flap rustled, and a massive shadow slipped inside. Lyria's wolf padded across the furs with silent, practiced steps, his silver-streaked coat catching the lantern light. He nudged Lyria's hand with his muzzle. She smiled softly and scratched behind his ear. Ah, Fenris, it must be your feeding time. Kyle, still lying on the cot, still trying to understand this world, stared at the creature with wide eyes. Is that your dog? Lyria froze for half a heartbeat. Then she burst into laughter, warm and musical. Dog? What do you mean, dog? She shook her head, still smiling. Fenris is a wolf, a trained war wolf at that. How have you forgotten so much? I think you need more rest, sir. Your mental state is certainly not at its best right now. She brushed a strand of hair from her face and continued. After you've slept a bit more, would you like to join me by the fire? We brewed a fresh batch of mead. It's always nice to have a drink after slaying creatures. It takes the edge off. Kyle blinked at her, baffled. A wolf? You've got to be joking. That would never be allowed where I'm from. It's dangerous. And honestly, really stupid if you ask me. He rubbed his forehead. And another thing, I like beer, not mead. Never had it. Lyria raised an eyebrow, amused. Well, it's like beer. Does the same job. She flashed him a smile, warm, disarming, familiar in a way he couldn't place. Something stirred in his chest. A feeling he hadn't felt since before. He found himself staring at her, unable to look away. Sure, he said quietly. I'll join you tonight. Lyria hesitated, then asked the question that had been tugging at her curiosity since he woke. Kyle, what did you mean by where I'm from? She stepped closer, her voice softening. I've known you a long time. This is where you've been for years. Maybe tonight, by the fire, you can tell me about this place you speak of. if you remember any of it." She leaned down, pressed a gentle kiss to his forehead, and whispered, "I'll see you soon." Then she and Fenris slipped out of the tent, leaving Kyle alone with the flickering lantern light and the pounding in his skull. He lay back, staring at the canvas ceiling, trying to force the pieces of his life into place. But the harder he tried, the more his head throbbed. A flash of white light seared across his vision. Suddenly, he wasn't in Eldros. He heard beeping, rushed voices, a woman crying, a child calling his name. His name. "Elias! Elias, can you hear us?" He tried to answer, but his body didn't move. He wasn't in the forest. He wasn't in the tent. He was in a hospital, surrounded by doctors, his wife, his son. They were trying to wake him, but he couldn't respond. The world of Eldros pulled him back under like a tide, and the voices of the real world faded into a distant echo.